What are you doing in my swamp?
Hello everybody, this is Ogreborn. I'm going to be doing my top 10 favorite movies of 1999. So, 1999 was a really good year for movies, so I'm going to give a few honorable mentions to a few that I really wish could have made the list, but I just couldn't quite fit them on there. Bicentennial Man, starring Robin Williams, I love that movie. The Matrix, a really great sci-fi action movie that almost made the top 10, but didn't quite make it. The Sixth Sense, a really good horror suspense thriller. And Fight Club, another movie that I just feel is a really great movie that most people would have on their top 10s of this year. So I wanted to just give those honorable mentions and stuff before I got going. So coming in at number 10 is Man on the Moon. This is a really, really good biopic about Andy Kaufman, starring Jim Carrey. I really love this movie. I'm not really familiar with Andy Kaufman myself. I haven't really watched a lot of stuff about him. I know there's a documentary called Jim and Andy on Netflix that I haven't seen yet that I'm kind of interested in. But this movie follows his life and his career and everything. And Jim Carrey is just absolutely amazing as Andy Kaufman. He did such a great job playing him in this movie. And I still think this is one of those movies that Jim Carrey deserved an Oscar for. There was a handful of movies I think he could have gotten Oscar nominations for. And I think this is one of the ones that I think he would have deserved to win for. He was amazing in this movie. I think he at least did deservingly win the Golden Globe Award. At least. So, at least he got some recognition and everything. But this movie is really, really great. And it's number 10. And number 9 is Big Daddy. This is a really, really funny Adam Sandler movie. I have always loved this movie ever since I was a kid. This was my introduction to Adam Sandler, and I've always really liked this movie. He's just absolutely hilarious in this movie, and I love the Sprouse twins as little Julian. They did such a good job playing him and everything. And then you got Rob Schneider in here. He's hilarious, and a really fun supporting cast with all of Adam Sandler's friends, including Leslie Mann and Kevin Nealon's even in here, and there's a bunch of different ones in here, but it has a really good, strong cast and everything. I really like this movie a lot. So Big Daddy is number 9, and number 8 is Stuart Little. I absolutely love this movie. It's been one of my favorites ever since I was a little kid. When it first came out, I was 7 years old, perfect age for this movie and everything, so a lot of my love for this is nostalgia, but I also just feel like this is a really good, fun family movie that actually holds up really, really well. Like I don't feel like it's aged poorly at all. The CGI on Stuart, I think, looks still just as good now as it did back then and everything. Snowbell is still hilarious, voiced by Nathan Lane. You got all the Little family perfectly cast with Hugh Laurie, Gina Davis, and Jonathan Lipnicki, all of them great in here. And I just love the story and everything. I think it's a really good movie. And I've always really loved the Stuart Little movies, and this one is such an underrated gem and everything. I see people like to make fun of it a lot nowadays. It's kind of become memes and stuff like the Spider-Man movies, except people don't tend to like Stuart Little like they do Shrek and Spider-Man, where they have a lot of love for those movies, even though they've turned into memes themselves too. Stuart Little kind of is one that the internet likes to bully, and I'm here to stick up for Stuart Little. I love those movies, and this movie is one of my favorite movies of 1999 for sure. So it's number 8, and number 7 is The Mummy. I absolutely love this movie. It's a really fun action adventure movie. Yeah, I'm not going to say too awful much about it because I am going to be reviewing it before too long and everything, because I'm going through Brendan Fraser's movies and stuff, so I will talk about it more when I get to it. But I do love this movie quite a bit and everything. I think the Mummy is a really, really great action adventure movie and everything. So it's number 7, and number 6 is Blast from the Past. This is another one that I'm not going to talk too much about, but it is one that I highly recommend. It's not one of those movies that is really well known. It stars Brendan Fraser and Alicia Silverstone, and it's about this family that is living underground for 30 years or 30 or 40 years from like the 50s to the end of the 90s and stuff. They're in living underground, and he comes out of and enters the 90s and everything, spending his life living like it was the 50s and stuff. So he has totally different morals and views and stuff, and it's kind of a big fish out of water story, kind of similar to Insano Man, except done even a million times better. Like, this movie is one of Brendan Fraser's best movies and everything. I'm not going to say too much else about it, or I'm going to spoil my review, but I highly recommend this movie if you haven't seen it. So Blast from the Past is number 6, and number 5 is Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I absolutely love this movie. It's another one of those movies that came out and polarized audiences. I was huge into Star Wars when this movie came out, and I was so mad that I didn't get to see it in the theater. I didn't get to see it till it was on VHS, and it had been out for a while by the time I finally did get to see it and everything. All my friends at school had already seen it and everything. I was so disappointed in that, but I was a huge fan of this movie and everything, and I was really hyped for it when it first came out and everything. I had all the toys, all kinds of merchandise and stuff. I collected the Pepsi and Mountain Dew cans for the movie. There was all kinds of stuff going on. Star Wars Mania was going heavy in the late 90s when this movie came out, and everything. And I've always really loved this one and everything, and I do still really enjoy it. It's not my most favorite Star Wars movie by any means, but I do really enjoy it quite a bit and everything. So Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace is number 5. And number 4 is The Iron Giant. This is another one that I don't want to talk too much about because I do plan on reviewing it at some point. In fact, I might do it actually here pretty soon and everything. But I'll just say that I really love this movie. It's a beautiful animated movie and one of the greatest animated movies of all time, and one of the best non-Disney animated movies of all time. I would highly recommend this movie if you haven't seen it and everything, but I'll save the rest of my thoughts on it until I do my review. But I really do love The Iron Giant, so it's number 4. And number 3 is Tarzan. I absolutely love Tarzan. I think this movie is one of the absolute best Disney movies ever made. It's one of my top 5 favorite movies from Disney Animation Studios for sure. And it's just a really good animated movie. It's one that I've always loved. I have a lot of nostalgia for it and everything. But the story of Tarzan being raised by the apes and meeting humans later in life and stuff, and having to choose between the two worlds and stuff, it's just a really entertaining story. And I've always really just loved this movie because of that and everything. And it's just one that has some really lovable characters, great music by Phil Collins, and yet gave us a fire soundtrack that I listen to almost all the time. I love listening to my Disney music, and his music is always mixed in there with all the other Disney songs I listen to, because I love the music in this movie. And I do feel this is one of Disney's absolute best and everything. So Tarzan is number 3, and number 2 is The Green Mile. This is another movie I don't want to talk too much about because I do want to review it, but this is a movie that I just absolutely love and everything. It's a over 3 hour movie, and it does not ever feel like it. It flies by. It's one of those movies that just sucks you into the story, and you can't keep your eyes off of it because you want to know what's going to happen to these characters as the movie progresses and stuff. And it's just a really good story and everything. And it has some really great performances from Tom Hanks, and especially Michael Clarke Duncan, who was just absolutely amazing as John Coffey. But you also got Sam Rockwell and a who's who of character actors in here. So it's got a lot of good people in here and everything. So I highly recommend The Green Mile if you've never seen it. It's a really great movie, especially if you've seen The Shawshank Redemption, which is also based on a short story by Stephen King. That movie was directed by Frank Darabont, who also directed this movie. And this movie is just as good, if not better, than The Shawshank Redemption. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it So, The Green Mile is number 2. And my number 1 favorite movie of 1999 is Toy Story 2. I absolutely love this movie. This is one of the greatest sequels of all time and everything. It's just a really, really good story. It continues the story of the first movie perfectly without being repetitive of stuff from the first movie. They just expand it perfectly, and it's just a really, really good movie. And it's one of my favorite animated movies of all time. But I say that about all 4 Toy Story movies because the Toy Story franchise is the best consistent animated franchise of all time and everything. And this movie is one of the highlights of that franchise, which is kind of weird to say, seeing every movie in the franchise is a highlight. But this movie is just so good and everything, and it's easily my favorite movie of 1999. There's not much else I can say about it that I haven't said. I've talked about this movie quite a bit before, so... But it's easily my number 1 favorite movie of 1999. So, anyway, let me know in the comments what your favorite movies of that year are. If you don't want to do a full top 10, just tell me your favorite. If you want, you could even tell me your least favorite too. I don't mind that either. What's your favorite and least favorite of that year? And I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good day, everybody.